I have made my views about cables perfectly clear. I do not believe, have never found, and have seen zero factual evidence to support the notion that cables change the sound of your gear, especially in the ways that audiophiles claim. I have experienced incredibly bad cables, faulty cables, and cables not properly connected, and sometimes those issues do cause some sort of difference in audio. But you will never hear from me any commentary about how a cable has elevated or altered the presentation. Having said that, companies time to time ask me to review cables. After all, I am a big fan of quality cables, those that are constructed well and are reasonably priced. Keep Hi-Fi asked me to review two cables from TRI. The first is the Wolfram, and the second is the Onyx. The former is $200 while the latter is $100. Keep Hi-Fi is among a handful of online retailers that specializes in hi-fi gear. Keep Hi-Fi has competitive prices and the same products available elsewhere. They have good customer service and a wide selection of audiophile gear to drool over. If you're inclined to buy something, check out their website. Now, let's delve into the TRI cables. TRI does make some interesting claims about their cables. With regards to the Wolfram, TRI says they use pure silver strands, which results in solid, strong, and cohesive sound. I'm not convinced this statement means anything at all. However, TRI does say that the Wolfram will provide, quote, pure sound and dark background. Finally, TRI claims that the Wolfram, quote, can bring not only higher resolution and more transparent sense of hearing, but also give more energy to sound. Regarding the Onyx, TRI says they use silver strands, just like the Wolfram. However, the Onyx has 6 cores while the Wolfram has 4. TRI says that the Onyx will provide powerful sound performance, which is a pretty vague statement. The Onyx, according to TRI, ensures that soundstage is neat, and this cable supposedly restores the timbre of earphones. TRI further claims that the Onyx can bring decent improvements over the 3 frequencies by enhancing the density and power of mid and low frequencies. I typically see these types of claims from uber premium cable companies. TRI's marketing is directly aimed at those who already are predisposed to believe such cables have an effect on sound. I've had a few months with the TRI cables and can vouch for their solid construction. Keep Hi-Fi asked me which ones I wanted to try, so I opted for the MMCX with 4.4mm balanced termination on both the Onyx and Wolfram. You can easily tell each cable apart from the other. The Wolfram has cloth sheathing, which is thick and pliable. The Onyx has PVC material that is not as soft nor as pliable as the Wolfram. Both cables have permanent ear hooks that are comfortable. The MMCX attachment has many dissenters. These types of connectors can be easily damaged. However, the MMCX connections on the TRI cables seem sturdy. TRI uses aluminum for the MMCX and the terminators. The aluminum housings are thick and strong. There isn't much else you can say about cables. Personally, I would have preferred a bit of flair to such expensive cables, some color options, and perhaps a detachable terminator, but that's in the custom cable realm. Overall, I cannot fault the construction of either cable. I'm not a fan of PVC sheathing on any cable, so find it here on the $100 Onyx is a little disappointing. But, as you will see very shortly, you could easily gripe about stock cables for gear that costs over $1,000. I did try both the Wolfram and Onyx during the time I've had with them. I have used them as replacements for my Campfire Audio Andromeda and IO, the Meze Ray Penta, the Light Harmonic Stella, and the Final Audio B2. If you're interested about how cables are actually measured, you can find information online. While you'll get anecdotal poetic mumbo-jumbo in forums, a few independent measurements have been done, and none have found an audible difference among various cables, especially not in the way that audiophiles keep claiming. Switching from one cable to another is not a valid test. There's no way to conduct a true A/B comparison without having an identical IEM for testing purposes. All I can say is that I never heard any immediate obvious difference when I switched to the TRI cables. The slight variations in soundstage and bass are much more attributable to insertion depth and placement of the IEMs. After all, in order to change cables, you have to take the IEMs off. You have to spend some amount of time switching cables, then putting the IEMs back on, then start the music again. You cannot remember the sound in that time frame, and you simply cannot replicate the same placement and insertion depth each and every time you repeat this process. In all frankness, I never experienced the type of sound alterations that TRI claims in their marketing. But if I did not find these types of claims true, then why bother reviewing cables? Because stock cables are usually trash. Blon has the worst cables I've ever seen, but they're not alone. The standard cables for my Campfire audio gear leaves much to be desired. The cables for the Ray Penta and the Stella are thin, janky, get tangled easily, and their respective connectors are downright fragile. When you spend money on such pricey gear, you expect quality cables. This is the same complaint I've had with audeze, hifi, meze, and other manufacturers. You don't have to spend $100 or $200 for a pair of nice cables. But since IEM companies can't be bothered to include good cables with their expensive toys, you might be in the market to make up for such deficiencies. I have found good cables for under $100. I also thoroughly enjoy the Hard Audio IEM cables since they give me access to the Hard connector system. When I compared the TRI cables to the stock cables from Meze, Light Harmonic, and Campfire Audio, I was again reminded how subpar the cables we get in the box really are. I kept going back to the Wolfram cable. I found its construction, pliability, and aesthetics quite pleasing. The Onyx cable with its PVC sheathing did not impress me as far as looks are concerned. But the overall question is whether anyone needs to buy an expensive cable. No, of course not. Look, if you've got something like the Aria BL03, Final Audio B2, or something else, you might want to replace cables, and you've got plenty of options well under the price tag of the Wolfram and the Onyx. But if you have an expensive IEM in the $1,000 or higher range, and you have disposable cash, then the TRI cables are a good combo as far as construction, durability, and looks are concerned. These are not value propositions. It's really hard to justify $100 or $200 for a cable when there are no unique features and there's literally zero evidence to support some of the claims. This is why I consider these a luxury purchase. And when you're in the luxury realm, you have a lot more freedom. You're not considering value, but instead other subjective matters. In that case, frankly, in my opinion, the Wolfram is a really tempting cable. Regardless, whether you choose to buy the TRI or other cable, take a look at Keep Hi-Fi. They were kind enough to let me review these cables, so check out their website if you're inclined to buy anything.